I just made the dumbest bone meal farm in the history of Minecraft using the new crafter block. Stay tuned to the end and see how much I got out of it. Alright, so I have a rough idea of how I want this farm to work. I have it outlined right here. So first we have a pumpkin farm that runs into the crafter. We have a bunch of chickens laying eggs that also runs into the crafter, and we have a sugarcane farm up here. Sugarcane farm runs into another crafter that crafts it up into sugar. Sugar runs into the crafter, then it spits out a pumpkin pie, which then goes into a composter, which will eventually give us our bone meal. So let's get started. So I guess the first thing we need to do is actually set up our collection area for the bone meal. So we have a composter right here, and this is the hopper that's going to feed into the composter. Next we're going to place our crafter into the hopper going into the composter, and just double check this actually works. I'm going to fill in the ingredients for a pumpkin pie and hit a button to make sure the composter actually gets filled, and there we go, our composter has risen up one level. Next I'm going to place 3 hoppers leading into the crafter, and out from the side of the crafter I'm going to take a comparator output so that when there are 3 items in the crafter, this will give an output and it will activate the crafter. And this little setup should do the trick. So this comparator is giving an output of 3 into the side of this comparator, so this comparator will only give an output when it receives a signal strength of 3 or greater. So all these droppers have the ingredients for a pumpkin pie. If I just hit this button, they'll make their way into the crafter, and the crafter will give an output, and the pumpkin pie will be dispensed into the composter. We also need a comparator output for the droppers so that if any one of them run out, the system will shut off. So I have that right here. All the droppers are currently empty. These redstone torches are on, which prevent this redstone torch from activating the system. But if I put the ingredients for the pumpkin pie, you can see they gradually shut off, and that when I enter the final one, this turns on, activates a non-functional monostable circuit. Wonderful. Got the issue fixed because I'm an idiot who forgets how monostable circuits work. I had an iron block on top of this piston, which wasn't redirecting the redstone into the repeater, so I switched it out for a target block. So now if I enter in all the ingredients, you see the monostable circuit activates, crafter crafts up a pumpkin pie, fills up the composter. We're getting there. The last thing we need is a circuit that reactivates the droppers if there are still items present inside of them, and that's what this pink circuit does right here. So when there are items in the droppers, this redstone torch will be on, this redstone torch will be off, which will cause this redstone torch to turn on. Hope that made sense. Now when the crafter crafts, it'll send a pulse into this repeater, which will fire into this torch, which will deactivate it momentarily, and then reactivating it, causing this line to pulse again. And I will demonstrate it with this. So I have 64 pumpkins going in, 3 eggs going in, and 64 sugar going in here. Now, since I only have 3 eggs, only 3 pumpkin pies will be crafted. However, the machine won't try to craft additional pumpkin pies. And you can see that right here. So there's the first pumpkin pie, there's the second pumpkin pie, and then there's the third pumpkin pie. System shuts off, and all of the items remain inside their respective droppers. And if I go and get more eggs, the system will boot back up into action. All that's left to do is to make the respective farms, the pumpkin farm, the egg farm, and the sugarcane farm. I'm not going to show that because there are hundreds of videos on YouTube about each of those respective farms, so I don't need to waste your time showing you how to build one, so I'm just going to skip that part. This is an unholy amount of poultry. Well, all the farms are in place. We have our pumpkin farm over here, we have our egg farm down there with all the chickens, and here is our sugarcane farm. And all of the sugarcane runs into this single crafter. I have an observer clock running out the back of the crafter so that whenever a piece of sugarcane goes in, it will automatically be crafted into sugar, and it will go in right here. And as you can see, this farm is working very nicely, crafting pumpkin pies as it pleases, filling composters, and giving us bone meal. So I'm going to let this thing run for about an hour just to see how much bone meal we get out of this absurd thing. In case you haven't already noticed, thanks to my editing notes, the machine did not work properly. And the problem stemmed from having two different ways to trigger the dropper, so instead I redesigned the system so that only the crafter can activate the system, and it will only activate it whenever it does a successful craft. So if we just fill in the dropper with some eggs, you can see it in action. It sends a pulse to the system and it just loops around, and then eventually when this dropper runs out of eggs, the block retracts and the crafter tries to send another signal, but since this block is pulled out of the way, it can't get there. But these comparators keep the signal looping around until the droppers fill up again, and then the block will be pushed back into the repeater, sending a pulse into the droppers. I also doubled the size of the pumpkin farm and added some more sugarcane modules, so hopefully we shouldn't run out of either of those items. That's also something that happened during the first testing. We were running out of both pumpkins and sugarcane. The system couldn't keep up. Alright, so let's perform another hour-long test on this thing to see how much bone meal we get. Alright, so here are the results. After 1 hour, we got a half stack of bone meal. Now that may not seem like a lot, but if you keep in mind the fact that we have 7 pumpkin pies for each bone meal, that means we have, how much? 224 pumpkin pies which have been processed by this machine. So yeah, it may not be the fastest bone meal farm in the world, but it's definitely the fastest pumpkin pie farm in the world. This thing is incredibly stupid, I am well aware of that, but I still wanted to build it anyway because no one can stop me. You have no power over me. This is a game where with no rules, I can do whatever I want. If you came to this video looking for an actual tutorial for a bone meal farm, then I deeply apologize. But I have made a working moss to bone meal farm. If you want to see that, I can make a video on that if you would like. So anyway, this has been GameStorm13. If you like what you see, be sure to leave a like or subscribe if you want. I'm out. See ya.